Steve, pleasure to meet you and be sitting on your boat right now.
Nice to meet you.
We're in Frankfurt, and you fish out of two different ports. So you fish out of Lake Erie, and then you come up here during the year. You just tell us a little bit about kind of how your season progresses.
We start down on Lake Erie May 10th, May 12th, somewhere in that range. Nice weather, and the walleyes are starting to stack up in the bay there. So we fish walleyes until July 1st, and then we move up to Frankfurt on Lake Michigan, and we fish salmon. We start somewhere around the 10th of July, and we go till around the 10th of September.
What does your walleye program look like down there?
We're pretty much planer board fishing. Normally big planer boards, dual skis, 5 lines per side, usually 2 dipsies per side. So our normal spread's probably 12, 14 rods.
What are you using? What's on the business end of those lines?
So we use Big John diving discs with Silver Streak junior spoons for walleyes, and then we also troll storm wiggleworts, just crankbaits. No diving disc needed for those, and we just run them kind of as a flat line, but off the planer boards.
Sure. What's a day like that what's that like for you?
As far as the fishing, usually it's pretty busy. Lake Erie's an awesome fishery, and usually I have a mate fishing with me, so 1 guy per side, and we're pretty busy.
Yeah.
Stuff's going on all the time.
I don't want to age you, Steve, but you got a little bit of gray hair.
Yeah.
How has that fishery kind of changed throughout the years since you've been fishing it?
The zebra mussels has cleaned the water up. So a little different color patterns, but essentially it really hasn't changed that much. More color patterns than anything, I think. We're still using the same baits. The spoon industry probably got really started maybe 15 years ago, and we started before that. It was all storm wiggleworts. If you didn't catch them on a wigglewort, you pretty much didn't catch them. But now we run the diving disc with the spoons, so that's changed.
You talked about those juniors. You've talked a little bit about color. What are some of your favorite color patterns for walleyes that time of year down there?
It really varies. There's a spoon we nicknamed the MiHi. It's gold and orange. A lot of pinks. The walleyes they're not super color sensitive to say maybe salmon. So you could run a pretty wide range of colors. We'll run one color for a week, and they'll wear the color right off the spoon. They'll eat it right off, and it still works. So not so much up here.
So you've got a boat down there, and then you've got a boat up here. What is it about Frankfurt? I mean, you could pick anywhere to put a boat and fish. What do you like about this area?
It's just a beautiful place to fish. The scenery's, second to none, I think. I've been around Michigan. I've fished a lot of different ports, and, we have Sleeping Bear Dunes, and, we have nice scenery, and the fishing's really good.
Tell me a little bit about how the port sets up as you're leaving the marina. What does it look like as you're heading out?
Kind of a typical port as far as, getting out of here. No wake until we get to the lake. And then we have pretty close fishing. We're lucky in that aspect. Our bank's about 2 miles out, and we have another deep drop off to the south that's about 2.5 miles. So we have a lot of structure in Frankfurt to fish.
Yeah, what's the bottom structure like in this area?
It's pretty soft. It's mostly clay bottom, but now with the zebra mussels, we do have weeds. 20 years ago, you could take a cannonball and drag it on bottom when you're fishing for trout. Now you have to be careful because you'll get weeded up. Yeah. So there is weeds down there now with the zebra mussels.
How deep is it as you're going out?
It's pretty flat here until you get to the drop-off. And then as you go to the north, the drop-off gets steeper and steeper. So it goes from 60 feet to 120 feet, and probably 2 or 3 football fields. It's pretty steep bank. And then we have an outer bank, we call it, and it goes from 180 to 240 pretty quickly. So
And what is the fishery like? What are the target species typically out here as you're fishing?
Mostly, this year we're catching a lot of, king salmon and coho salmon. Lake trout, Frankfurt's always been known for lake trout. Mm-hmm. So if the fishing's slow, we always have lake trout. It's been a good thing for us. We have, 3 or 4 different places that hold lake trout. So that's kind of what the fishery's been. This year, probably, I know the salmon fishing this year is better than it's been in a decade.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal this year.
And that's what I've heard, and the size structure too has been up from what I've heard. A lot of big fish.
Yeah, the cohos are really nice. Probably average 6 to 10 pounds, I guess, and maybe a bigger one here and there. And then the kings are 15 to 25 with. I think there was a 33 or 32 pounder caught in the tournament yesterday. So some nice kings. We had a pretty nice box of kings this morning, and we had a lot of 18 to 20s in there. So
a lot of fish and a lot of big fish, and you're saying it's one of the best years you've seen in 10 years. What do you think has led to that?
Well, I think last year we had a good alewife spawn, which the cohos really like. The cohos like the young of the year alewife. That gives them size quickly, and that's kind of what contributed probably to the nice size coho. And the bait fish are, on the comeback. So, and also Wisconsin and Michigan also up the planning of the kings. So they're pouring a lot of fish to the lake right now.
So a lot of fish in the water and a lot of food for them to eat.
Yeah. Let's hope the food holds up.
So with all that going on, do you feel like it makes it harder to catch the fish with more bait out there, more options for them? And what do you feel like with that?
No, I think it holds the fish here more. If you have bait fish, the big fish are going to be around. Mm-hmm. A couple years ago when the bait fish was low, the kings would come and go because they're going to return to the Betsy period, because that's where they spawn. So they'll come back, but they're a little bit more finicky if there's no food around.
Tell me a little bit about your program. How do you fish them, and does that change throughout the year from July when you get here until September?
Yeah, in July, if we're targeting lake trout, we're fishing bottom primarily, or close to bottom. Some cowbells, some Magnum spoons. We always fish 4 divers, high and low diver. We also, fish a lot of lead core and copper lines. So my normal setup's probably 13 rods. That's usually how we start.
And so it's a Laker fishery kind of early on in your season, and it changes over to salmon as it goes through.
That's what has been happening, but this year wasn't. We didn't really have to fish trout too much because there are so many salmon around. So we only fished. I only really targeted trout. I think maybe 3 or 4 charters. After I started. So there's been quite a few salmon around, and we did fish kind of combination with salmon and trout.
When you're fishing the salmon around here, are you running spoons, or what do you typically run?
Yeah, a lot of spoons. As the season starts, we're usually spoons and rotators, Dreamweaver rotators. And as the season progresses, now we're progressing into running a lot of plugs. A lot of number 3 and number 5 silverhorn plugs.
And what are some of your favorite colors to run out here out of Frankfurt?
This year, chili goose is always my favorite. It's a greenish spoon. Looks like that. That's some of my go-to spoons that we've been running the last week. Color similar to that. Blue dolphin's always good in Frankfurt. Things in that nature.
Okay. I talked to my boss, Trevor Sumption. It's a guy that you know pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
Before coming out here, and he's like, Steve is a killer, and if there's fish around, he's going to catch them. What do you think it is about what you do that makes you? And I know people don't like to brag about themselves, but yeah. I've talked to a few different people and thrown your name around, and everybody's
right.
like, Oh, that guy catches fish. So what do you think it is about the way that you fish that makes you successful?
One of my older charter captains, buddy, always told me you got to pay attention to little detail. Little details. Nicks in the line. He always told me if you have 13 rods out, you get a bite on every rod. Mm-hmm. Every rod gets a bite. You've had a pretty good day. So, and especially if rods get multiple bites. So, details to what you're running, things of that nature, and the experience, right? Where to go, how to set up. One of the things for me is the fish hawk. That's my my first rod in the water. It kind of tells me the story of the day. Tells me where temperature is, what my speed is, where the current is. That's always my first rod in and I run it on my center downrigger.
What are you looking for typically for temperature? What's the kind of the number that you like?
In the early part of the year, in the low 50s. This time of year, the kings are a little bit more tolerable. So are the cohos. They're getting ready to spawn, so some of them may be up in the warmer water. But today, primarily, most of the fish were in the 50s. A couple of fish right at the end. We kind of drop down as the day progresses and the sunlight gets in the water. So we drop our program down a little bit. Our last fish was probably 85 down. We started the morning in 45, 50. So
you've had a long career. You've been doing this for a long time. If you have somebody who's kind of aspiring to be a charter captain, or maybe they're just getting started, what advice would you have for them to extend their career and be able to do this as long as you have?
You have to enjoy it. That's the number one thing. I've been pretty fortunate to do it. Next year will be my 40th year, and everybody asks me, when are you going to retire? And I say, well, I'll retire when I don't enjoy it anymore. Yeah. I don't mind reeling a fish in, but I like to see them bite. That's my thing, and I like watching people reel them in. As far as young guys getting into the business, it's a fair amount of work. You have to be dedicated to it. To make a decent living at it, we're running 2 trips a day, and we start our day at 4 a.m. and then we end our day at 11 o'clock at night. So a couple short naps in between and back at it again. In Michigan, it's a short season, so you gotta make hay while the sun shines, I guess.
You also have to work with clients. I mean, you're working with people, and a lot of the times they come on the boat and they may not know a whole lot about what they're doing. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of some of the things that you do to kind of put people at ease and help them have a better day? Yeah,
we just try to coach them best we can. We could tell their personalities and how they are. We had an older lady today from Virginia. She'd never fished before. She lost a couple, but that's how it goes. And then you just keep coaching them, and sooner or later she's going to get one in. Mm-hmm. So we just kind of help them along and watch the enjoyment, and they'll get them in. They'll wear them out.
You guys had a pretty good day today.
We did.
Tell me about your day today.
Well, we probably had we ended up with 18, but we probably had 25, 30 bites. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty fantastic morning for a half-day salmon charter. Yeah. Any salmon charter, really.
Things rocking pretty hard there.
Yeah.
Anything that you wanted to talk about today that I didn't ask you about?
I think we pretty much got it. It's a great fishery here in Frankfurt, and like you were saying, you'd never fished here before, but it's a beautiful place to be.
Right. Very good. It's Steve from MiHi Fishing, and I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. And if somebody wants to book a trip with you, how do they get a hold of you?
They can call me at 248-763-2769. That's our business line, and MiHi Charters.com.
Steve Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.